I will now invite my co-chair to make some address.
Members of the press, my partners in progress, print and media, a very good morning to all of you today. We are happy to be here, part of this democratic engagement, to present an overview of the functions of the ministry, which has been encapsulated in the remarks of the distinguished chair of this joint committee, as well as also show you the 2024 budget performance under the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security, from where this ministry has been carved out, and also give you an in-depth of our strategic pillars for the 2025 fiscal year. It is common knowledge that this ministry was created on the 9th of July by Mr. President, and it's been formalized immediately thereafter. A temporary an office has been designated, although not fully rehabilitated and occupied. The severance process started, but is not yet concluded. But to speed up this process, the President went ahead to appoint a minister in my humble self, and the necessary structures are beginning to take shape in the form of common services departments that have been staffed from the Office of the Head of Service and the Office of the Secretary of the Government, including the two technical departments that are coming out from the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security. We have our mission, we have our vision, it's encapsulated there. I don't want to bore you with those ones. Then we look at the mandate of the ministry, increasing production, productivity, and resilience of our livestock sector, improving animal health. This has been mentioned by both chair and the co-chair. We're talking about climate smart livestock sector in the country. This is a response to be able to mitigate the negative impact of climate change, to create enabling environment for entrepreneurs and agribusiness people to invest in the sector, to also enhance market access for our produce both locally and internationally, and as well as open up avenues for the teeming youths and women in this country to be fully engaged in productive economic activities in the livestock sector. I said that the severance process is still ongoing, it's work in progress, but we envisage that on page 6, these are the agencies that should come under the ministry as it is fully formed. And therefore, we cannot say legally that these are squarely under the ministry, because the report of the Presidential Committee on the Implementation of the Reforms have been submitted. We are awaiting the white paper, as well as the necessary documents from the head of service to formally transfer these agencies under the ministry. But we are, at the moment, they are here with us. We are establishing a report to be able to engage and bond and then share in the vision of the ministry, knowing fully well that these are really livestock-oriented. Now, on page 8, distinguished chair, honorable co-chair, distinguished senators, members of the House of Representatives, we have here gotten from the 8-point agenda of this administration, we've been able to distill 4 areas that are squarely and organically should form the focus of the new Ministry of Livestock Development. So they are there, and we believe these are the deliverables that we should be able to focus on, and they should engage our attention and resources. And fully functional ministry, and as the co-chair indicated, and also asked whether we are fully ready to face the challenges. The ministry, today we are there in the office of the Secretary of Government, where we have been given some spaces, though not sufficient enough, That's where we operate from. It's not a permanent building. We don't have an ICT. We don't have many of the logistical support that would require a fully functional office. But nonetheless, we've been able to form our team that are here today. We have bonded well. We are sharing in the vision that is emerging from the little focus groups discussion we've had, where we've been able to distill all the reports that have been submitted by the presidential committee, and then other reports that have been formed either by McKinsey or other study groups that have been done under the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security. All these have been distilled, and we have been able now to identify our strategic roadmap for the transformation of the livestock sector. So we are looking here. There are roadmaps here, as I've said, and we are also embarking on a massive sensitization of the entire country, especially those stakeholders that have very solid and critical interest in the livestock sector. And I do believe that in the next 1 or 2 weeks, we'll be able to launch that one, to advertise the ministry, to brand the ministry, and then unlock the potential there in terms of informing the generality of Nigerians and the international community who have shown very strong appetite to do business with us. So if we go to page 10, where we talked about our strategic pillars, and these, again, have been distilled from, like I said, the strategic focus of this administration under the Renewed Hope agenda, as well as what we do believe are the necessary pillars that will now go into transforming the livestock sector. There are view graphs there: enhancement of livestock, poultry production and processing. We are always talking about value addition. Value addition is key here, whether it's for local consumption or for export. We are talking about animal health and disease control, and this is very, very key. You are not talking about the number of animals only. We'll also be concerned about the quality of those animals in terms of longevity, free from stress, bodily harms, and diseases. And then we're also talking about feed and fodder development. And this is very, very key and very, very central in our focus, because our belief in the ministry is that feed, fodder is livestock. If you don't have sufficient feed and fodder, both qualitatively and quantitatively, you won't talk of any sustainable livestock enterprise. We're also talking about water resource management. This is very, very key because of the long dry spell we have in this country, where after the rainy season, our animal resources goes through a very strenuous process for lack of feed and particularly water, either for dry season irrigation, for pasture, or for drinking. We're also talking about sustainable waste management. It should be understood that as you process animals, you have a lot of waste. And here we are talking about how do we manage those waste.
Your eloquence and your knowledge of what is being talked about, this is. But I think why we are here is to engage ourselves in specifics, especially what you envisage, what your vision is, and the specifics of what the budget should go for. In this case, these are areas you are focusing on. What are the figures? How do you justify the figures attached today in terms of how much paid, specific areas? You've well laid the foundation, accepted. If we allow you, if we allow you, we may waste so much time because it seems as if you are giving us lectures. But the main purpose of our engagement with you today is the budget. What budget do you have? These are the areas you envisage to be your areas of engagement as far as the budget is concerned. Chairman, that's my observation.
In as much as it's a very new ministry with new innovations, and I think this ministry is very, very strategic. I believe that looking at how busy we have plenary session, we have other committees, people come in and go out. I think it drives the need for us to be directly on what is here. And then maybe after this, being a new ministry, there should be a need for a small retreat between the ministry and members legislators so that we get to acquaint where we are going to. But this opportunity may not be enough for us to replace the retreat. So I think we better go to the budget defense, and then by the grace of God after this, because we are all supporting the ministry, we're all supporting the establishment of this ministry. We believe it means well for Nigeria and Nigerians. So I think if we are more specific, so that you have our attention, you don't have people going in and coming out without really listening to what you are doing. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Co-Chairman.
Mr. Chair, I think that, just like I said earlier, in reviewing 2024, I've gone through this. There are only 2 departments that you are inheriting, or you have inherited from the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security. Now, whatever budget you have, it will be dependent on, one, how prepared are you? In terms of accommodation, for instance, you mentioned that you are still managing somewhere the SGL's office. Now, what is the situation report? Have you gotten accommodation? What are the challenges? Now, in terms of staffing, and in fact, this asset sharing between you and the Ministry of Agric, you mentioned you are expecting white paper and not what have you. How long will it take to get the white paper? Because that will be your roadmap. It will help you to develop your roadmap. And if 3 months after the creation of the ministry, you don't still have that clear something, so, and that has affected the budget itself, because the announcement by Mr. President of the creation of this ministry has raised the hope of Nigerians, and so much is expected. But now we want to know, before we even go into the budget, because I've seen the budget is so small, when you relate it to the report, implementation committee report, there is a wide gap, so I think these are issues we really want to let us come out, let us know what your situation is, because the accommodation thing that we're talking about, so how far with the accommodation, how far with the staffing and this.
Honorable Minister, I think just address these questions and then we move straight to the budget presentation 2025. I think we'll save time.
And we'll take corrections. Regarding the office accommodation as raised by the Honorable Co-Chair, a building has already been identified, and the President has given directive to the FCT Minister to renovate and furnish. So we are in very good touch with the Minister of FCT on that matter. We visited the building, but we do believe that that probably I'm not sure, under his 2025 plan. But that office has been identified, it is sufficient enough, and we are waiting for that. But of course, we also made efforts to contact other agencies to see if we can have a temporary accommodation that will be sufficient enough before that building is renovated. But we are in constant touch with the minister that has been so directed by Mr. President to see to the renovation and furnishing of that building. And we do believe that in the not distant future, that will be done, because the structure is already there. It's only to partition and then put up the necessary infrastructure in terms of ICT, furnishing, etc., etc. So that is for that one. And in terms of staff formation, we have a full complement of our staff. We have met our team, and we do know our strength, and we do believe that with the strength the talents we have today, we have the capacity to drive the necessary changes, Honorable Chair and Honorable Distinguished Chair and Honorable Co-Chair. We are very comfortable with that, and we are determined that that will happen. To the budget straight, on page 17, we have a neat figure of 10 billion naira for capital and 1.8 billion for overhead. On page 18, we have been able to identify capital projects for 2025 and have squeezed those projects to meet that envelope is presented to us. We have 2025 capital projects across the geopolitical zones. Now, this has indicated, and we have taken into cognizance, the concentration of livestock, the flashpoints. What I mean by flashpoints here, these are areas that have wider security implications arising engendered by the density of the livestock there. And then we also looking at the population as well as a market-driven project, so that we can quickly establish that enabling environment to be able to attract both local and foreign investors. So this is what we have, and we do believe that, of course, this is not cast in stone. When we have other bilateral engagements, we also have other sources, other special allocations because of the criticality of this ministry, or we have, from our international partners, we have more funds, including Jacob Grant. This is not cast in stone. We will identify other projects to still reach far and wide corners of this country, including what we do believe will be very, very central in constituencies across the country. So this is what we have in terms of the budget proposal for capital projects. And this is going to be driven by need. We do know the need of each of these areas in terms of livestock sector interest to be able to assist in the infrastructure necessary. It could be market, it could be ranches, it could be capacity building, it could be animal health and veterinary services, as well as to be able to also we have also identified international cattle corridors coming into this country. And those corridors today have no semblance of any amenity, in terms of resting points or watering points, is this cattle come into this country. We have identified those corridors, and they are part of what we are going to address in the 2025 capital projects that has been indicated on page 18. Now, subsequent pages, up to page 21, have indicated the expenses as proposed for the 1.8 billion for overhead. They are there indicated, and then the amount spread and the budget line, the account, have been identified as well. Now, looking at the capital project as explained, from page 23, encapsulates the pie chart we indicated in terms of details of the location, as well as the identification of the project, and then the amount that have been allocated to each of those budget lines. And at the end of on page 31, this is where it ends, where we have a full summation of 10 billion naira as distributed across those 6 geopolitical zones in the country. But once we have an opportunity, we will still open up and come back here to engage with the respective joint committee to also, because we also have a large number of projects. These are the critical ones to be able to make the ministry very visible and create the necessary impact out there in the field. But there are a lot of other projects that we have identified but couldn't be captured by this 10 billion naira allocated for 2025 fiscal year. Yes, I have, unless if I do not need to go through the details of okay, good. So that concludes the budget presentation. And as I said, we have accounted for the 10 billion given in terms of project capturing and spread across the country. And I said these are what we think that are very, very critical to make a visible and create the necessary impact there, because we do know the expectations this ministry has awoken across the country as we travel, as we went around, as we receive different groups, different cooperative societies, different stakeholders, both local and national. We do believe that this will create the necessary enabling environment for both transformation to begin, as well as create that necessary environment again for local and foreign investors. Thank you, distinguished chair, honorable co-chair, distinguished senators, members, House of Reps, distinguished stakeholders, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, the honorable, and the appraisal of the 2024 budget. Thank you very much. We will now open the line for questions from distinguished senators and our colleagues, the honorable members. If there are any questions for them. Okay.
And co-chair, page 18, I think where you had a summary of percentages for the zones, especially, I see you allocated 18% to Northwest and about 16% in the Northeast, and only 14% in the North Central. 14% in the North Central. I'm not arguing, but I'm saying that you know too that in the process of what we are doing, first of all, part of this ministry is to address some security issues, pending security issues, especially zones that were heavily bedeviled by farmers' herdsmen crisis. That's one. Number two, in some of these zones, you have concentration of institutions, very heavy institutions that will assist in the productions of vaccines and so on and so forth. For a very long time, these institutions have been rendered like moribund. No modern facilities, because you mentioned issues of further issues. If you go, for instance, let me give you an example. At the veterinary, that was where we were producing further. But if you examine the place now, you will find out that it is not longer there. There's a tendency for people to now start talking about, because I hear people talking about Brazil, talking about Netherlands. I have been around for this cause. Of course, you know, we're fighting for the military to be set up like this. But then, let us not talk about concentration on foreign imports. Let us go back and make sure to the basics. Let us rehabilitate and start from the ones that we have. Some of these instruments can even be fabricated. We have a lot of places that can do fabrication, that can produce further. Because the likelihood, I didn't see that in your budget, but I know that in the process, you will see people talking about bogus amount, saying they want to import this, they want to import further. There was a time that importation of further caused problem for the existence of a ministry like this. There's no need. So I want us to concentrate. I know it will not be in your budget now. I want it to be part of it, and also to explain to us even the basis for your allocation, so that some of us can go back and explain to, we come from a zone, why our zone is lower instead of being higher. I know that when you want to produce, when you want to give attention to things like that, please don't throw away the institutions. We have to start reactivating those institutions. It will even bring down the cost as far as per the budget. So this is, and then
the basis of this allocation is understandable, but I hardly can believe what is there. North Central 14%, FCT, although asterisk 14%. Going further, 2026, and as you progress, take note of this. as much as Northeast and Northwest have more, in quote, of animals, North Central is key in developing this sector. In terms of availability of land, the vegetation, the inland waterways. So I think your team should take note of this for progression. Thank you.
His Excellency, distinguished Senator Lalong asked about security issues and the overriding security issues in that zone, as well the issue of institutional capability to address the gaps in terms of vaccines and human resource development. We are conscious of the situation in that zone, and like I said, we are laying the foundation for this ministry in terms of infrastructural development, and the resources we have is what we have so far allocated. But this is not cast in stone, and any opportunity we have going forward, we think that along the line, we will get some special allocation because of the criticality of this ministry and the concerns of Mr. President about the transformative nature that we need to bring to bear on the livestock sector. Therefore, we are not unconscious of that, but the overriding security issue consideration is what actually informed some of these distribution of projects. And some of them are basically more, like we said, in terms of the ability to begin to introduce the concept of ranching. So this is what we're talking about. And if you look at the cattle density in the two leading zones, they are overridingly have the highest number of cattle density, livestock density, let me use that word, livestock density in this country, and as well as the flash points between the northeast and then the northwest. So this is the reason. And we are not saying that there are no flash points elsewhere, but we're talking about data-driven considerations here. But we will take correction in this, and going forward, we will adjust as funds become available. As for the institutions, for instance, each one of the heads of those institutions are here. They have their separate budget. But we also have an agenda, for instance, to be able to build the capacity, commercialize NVRI, National Veterinary Research Institute. At the moment, they are not able to, they are only able to give us 15% of our national vaccine requirement. And we do spend, co-chair and co-chair, distinguished senators, ladies and gentlemen, honorable members, almost $1.5 billion to import vaccines into this country. We need to be able to be in the position to give NVRI the necessary resources to meet our vaccine requirements and even to produce commercial quantity for the West African sub-region. So each of those institutions have their own budget, and then they will present them. But at the general level, we have our own agenda to be able to face squarely the needs and challenges of those institutions to be able to make them answer to their own national needs. Yes, I agree that some of the issue of communication is key. And in fact, right from the time we were appointed in the office, we took up the issue of communication. We are working on that. We have separate teams working on both the print and media as well as social media to be able to brand this ministry. And by the time we come out with that, it will be a sustained tempo to be able to talk to our stakeholders, especially the youth, the women, and the itinerant pastoralists. It's going to come out in many Nigerian languages to be able to address the issues and then invite people to come for investment and by unlocking the value chains that are hidden in that sector. Thank you very much, the representative from Asikira Uba, who has given us some more explanations regarding the need to set up a very solid foundation for this ministry. This is our first engagement, and I do believe that in subsequent engagements, by the time we're out on the field, very visible and impactful, you will see what we are doing. So on the whole, I want to thank members for pointing out some of these issues. We have taken note, and as time goes on, we'll address some of the concerns raised in these geopolitical sectoral allocations, and then we'll touch base with each of the representatives here, senators and honorable members, to be able to address some of the concerns out there, like the senator, distinguished Senator Lalong, His Excellency pointed out that they need to go back there and explain. We are sure of that. We know that. We know it happens, and then we are going to work hand in gloves with you to be able to address those issues in your constituencies. Thank you, distinguished chair, co-chair.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. We'll still take some more questions.
Mr. Ningi, for raising that question, which is a valid democratic question. We in the ministry, we have our mandate. We have been set up, like the distinguished pointed out, it's a constitutional requirement, and we have started work. The committee, the distinguished senator is referring to, Mr. President himself is the chairman of that committee, and Professor Jega is the co-chair. And therefore, the ministry is not in a position, distinguished senator, to ask the legality or otherwise of that committee. And I want to take cover here, and I want the distinguished chairman of this joint committee, the distinguished senator that asked the question, and the co-chair, and by extension, distinguished senators of this committee and honorable members, to give me that cover, that I am not competent to comment on that distinguished senator.
Thank you very much. The Honorable Minister, I've seen your budget. My colleagues raised the issue of allocation, zonal allocation, but my own position is this is not the budget of the Ministry of Livestock Development that we envisage. I want to believe that it's just a carryover from the Ministry of Agri and Food Security. Because I had expected that, I don't know, like just similar to the question that distinguished Senator Ningi raised. To what extent is your the preparation of your budget influenced by the report of the implementation committee? Because if you go through, I have the report here, and there's aspects on funding. There's an aspect on funding. If you look at the projected funding from 2024 up to 2027, for 2024, it's expected, you are expected to have 109 billion. 241.9 billion for 2025. 2026, 219.5 billion. And 2027, 194.3 billion. But this has not reflected in the budget that you have presented to us. So I will expect that probably you got caught up in, in your preparation to take off, with this budget preparation. And I think that there will be need for you to make special presentation on this. Coincidentally, Mr. President is the chairman of the implementation committee of the summit, and this is the committee's report. So that if probably it may be necessary to come up with a supplementary budget that will really meet the, that will take cognizance of the recommendation contained in the report and reflect the hope of Nigerians. Because 2025 is very critical. If this ministry is not well funded to embark on the activities lined up in the implement.
We do believe that there will be opportunity for supplementary budget, as well as we'll also approach the Ministry of Budget and Planning for special allocation, considering the central and critical nature of the livestock sector, the expectation it has generated in the country, and then also looking at the interface between livestock and the security challenges we're having in the country. So we are not oblivious of that. We'll take note and then make the necessary approach to make sure that we get more funding. On the issue of misconception, yes, I agree with you totally that this is about livestock. And we believe our constituency starts from honeybee, rabbits, pigs, sheep, goat, donkey, camel, horse, cattle. In fact, it's all about farmable animals. All these come under our purview. And we also do know that in terms of density and nature of business type, we know that yes, the Southwest has a very successful template in poultry. We are not oblivious of that. We do know that also pig farming is also there across the country, but there are pockets of concentration and density, and then business development. Sheep and goats as well is also spread across the country. The cattle, for reasons of geography and climate, are more found in the north, but of course there is that pattern of movement from seasonal migration, etc., etc. Donkeys that are almost extinct now, we are conscious of that, and we are making efforts to also create sanctuaries and work with people to make sure that we don't lose that beast of burden that have been part of this ecosystem from time immemorial. For the cattle today, very, very surprisingly, we discovered that there's a cattle farm here in Abuja, and there are many also coming up in the northeast. They are also very, very good aspects of our own livestock ecosystem. So we take note on this, Honorable Co-Chair, and make the necessary adjustments. Thank you.
Thank you so much, the Honorable Minister, distinguished. I would like to thank the Minister for coming here. And my observation here was that this whole budget, the ministry is preventing, they are using the budget, that the envelope. You are given the envelope of 10 or something billion. So the budget was based on that. So what we will do, what I'm urging is this committee, our members and our members from the House of Representatives to come together, to put our head together, to see how we will assist this ministry to see that they have more funding because of the high expectation this Nigerian, our citizens have on this ministry of livestock development. And want to assure the minister that we will do our best to see that we definitely assist you in terms of on this budget issue. I also want to. There are a lot of people have spoken on this enlightenment issue. This enlightenment issue, I think you should take it very seriously and try to reach out to the citizen, make a lot of enlightenment for people to understand what is going on and what is to be done. And we know we are targeting the youth. The youth of this nation should be targeted, should be our target. We should be trying our best to see that, to see how we will help them, how we provide some job for them. I think with this, I will call on the vice co-chairman to say what conclusion. Thank you.
We expect that you work on this as early as possible, because we are at a period of foundation laying, and how strong the house will be dependent on how solid, the foundation is. So, and just like the chairman promised that we are on the journey together, and we'll give you all the necessary support to realize the purpose of setting up this, establishing this ministry. So, on that note, and also, I think we'll expect you to give us progress report on some of these, your challenges, because we have noted some of the challenges, issue of accommodation and others, so that where necessary, we will make intervention, I mean, your white paper, I expect that the white paper should be out by now, so that you can run with it, without further delay. So on that note, I welcome you once again. I want to thank you for coming. So thank you.
Leave while we continue with the Veterinary Council of Nigeria, the Nigerian Institute of Animal Science, and the Nigerian Agricultural Quarantine Services. Thank you so very much for being here. Thank you so much.
Collaborating with state governments. Just about 3 days ago, I was in Borno State, and we had a lot of productive engagements with the governor, with a lot of stakeholders on Maiduguri. Earlier on, I was in Adamawa. The same thing happened, and here in the office, we were also receiving a lot of interest group stakeholders, both local and foreign, to see how they can partner with us, collaborate with us to move the sector forward. Many of them are private enterprise, private entrepreneurs, private agribusiness people. Either they want to go into feedlotting, they want to go into dairy, they want to go into goat and sheep farming, or they want to go into meat processing. So many interests have been generated, and we do believe that that is the way to go, for us to be able to create that enabling environment for people to find jobs in any of the value chains across the gamut of livestock sector in the country.
Yes. What about the budget side for 2025? Are you prepared for it?
Yes, we came here, as you see, it was a very democratic process, very free engagement. The atmosphere was not that combative. We shared ideas, we told them our vision on the basis of what have been allocated to us. We do sectoral allocations, and that drew a lot of interest from the distributed members of the committee, both Senate and House. We defended what we did on the basis of cattle density in the country, or the type of livestock that are there in terms of either pig or poultry or cattle or sheep or goats, etc., etc. And then this budget is to lay the foundation for the takeoff of the ministry going forward. What we believe is that what we've been allocated is sufficient enough to lay that foundation. But of course, we are not saying that that's all we require. As the time goes on, we'll look for special grant because of the criticality of this sector. We'll look for also supplementary budget. Again, because of the criticality of this sector, it borders on one, food security for the nation. Number two, there are security overlap between us and our gallant armed forces. So we need to have that just conversation with them to make sure that all the rural areas are stabilized and normalized, so that people go about normal business, and the sector can also contribute its own quota to the GDP of the country.
Thank you so much, sir.